My girlfriend said, "You can still support me privately, just don't appear publicly." While wiping 14 months off her feed, I replied, "Then my money goes private too." Shut down every access point. 2 days later, the first panic message came from. So I finally learned what it feels like when someone decides you're good enough to bankroll their lifestyle, but not good enough to acknowledge publicly, and honestly, it took seeing my face systematically erased from someone's digital existence to understand how little I actually meant to them. I spent 14 months thinking I was building something real with Serafina, 28F, a lifestyle influencer here in Miami with about 47K followers. She creates content around fashion, wellness, living your best life, all that aspirational stuff that apparently requires a significant monthly budget to maintain. What I didn't realize was that I'd become her invisible ATM. Present for every bill, absent from every post. Let me back up. I'm a digital marketing specialist making around 95K, so I understand social media better than most. When we started dating, Serafina had maybe 12K followers and was working part-time at a boutique while trying to build her brand. I was genuinely supportive, helped her with content strategy, paid for professional photos, covered expenses so she could focus on growing her platform instead of worrying about rent. When her car broke down, I handled the payment for a lease that would look good in her lifestyle content. When she needed to maintain her image with regular salon visits and designer pieces for posts, I figured that was investing in our future together. The thing is, I thought we were partners. I thought her success was our success. What I failed to notice was that as her follower count grew, my presence in her content decreased. It happened gradually. First I was the boyfriend taking cute couple selfies. Then I was the hand occasionally visible holding her phone for outfit shots. Then I was just the voice behind the camera asking if she got the shot she wanted. The breaking point came 3 weeks ago. I was scrolling through her Instagram like any supportive boyfriend would, and I realized something that made my stomach drop. She'd systematically deleted every single photo that included me. Not just recent posts, everything. 14 months of our relationship digitally erased like I never existed. I found her in our apartment, that I pay for, editing content on her laptop. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice casual. "I noticed you took down all our photos together." She didn't even look up from her screen. "Yeah, I'm rebranding. Couple content doesn't perform as well as independent woman content. It's better for my aesthetic and engagement." Aesthetic, I repeated. My followers want to see confident, single energy. Having a boyfriend in every post makes it harder for people to relate to my lifestyle content. The casual way she said it, like I was a piece of furniture she'd decided didn't match her decor anymore, hit me harder than I expected. "So where exactly do I fit into this rebrand?" I asked. She finally looked at me, and I saw something in her expression I'd been missing for months. Mild irritation that I was questioning a business decision she'd already made. "You don't," she said. "At least not publicly. Obviously you're still important to me personally." Personally, as in privately, as in useful for financial support but not worth associating with publicly. That's when something clicked that had been building for months. I'd been watching her transform into this independent lifestyle influencer, while I quietly funded every aspect of that independence. Her self-made success story was entirely dependent on my income, but acknowledging that would ruin her brand narrative. I was being erased because my existence contradicted the image she was selling. "That's interesting," I said, "because I've been thinking about my own aesthetic lately." She looked confused. "My financial aesthetic," I continued, "and having all my money disappear into someone else's lifestyle without any acknowledgement isn't really the look I'm going for." Then I walked to my laptop and systematically removed her from every shared account, credit card, and financial access point she'd gradually been added to over the past year. Checking account, removed. Credit card authorized user status, canceled. Venmo access, revoked. Car payment autopay from my account, stopped. If she wanted to be digitally independent, she could be financially independent too. The first sign that my new financial aesthetic was working came 2 days later when she texted me from a boutique where her card got declined trying to buy a $300 dress for content. "What did you do?" she texted. "Rebranded," I replied. "For my aesthetic. Edit." A lot of people are asking about whether I gave her warning. I gave her 14 months of warning every time I saw my face disappearing from her public life while my money stayed present in her private life. Edit 2. To those saying I should have communicated first, I did. I asked where I fit in her rebrand. She told me I didn't. I'm just matching that energy. Edit 3. For people asking if this is extreme, systematically erasing someone from your public life while keeping them financially tied to your private life is extreme. I'm just bringing balance to the situation. Update 1. Well, she's learned some new vocabulary words. Serafina came home yesterday, to the apartment I pay for, with a very different energy than the casual dismissal she'd shown me the week before. Apparently having your credit card declined in front of other influencers at a high-end boutique will shift your perspective on the importance of financial relationships. We need to talk about what you did, she announced, like a manager calling an employee into their office. About what? I asked, genuinely curious to see how she'd frame this. You're financially abusing me, she said. Cutting off someone's access to money without warning is a form of control and manipulation. I had to admire the strategy. When your social media erasure plan backfires, pivot to victim terminology and hope people don't ask questions about the context. That's interesting, I said. What would you call systematically removing someone from your public life while keeping them financially tethered to your private expenses? She looked genuinely confused, like she couldn't understand why I was bringing up her social media choices in a conversation about money. That's completely different, she said. My Instagram is my business. You don't own my content. You're absolutely right, I agreed. I don't own your content, just like you don't own my money. The silence that followed was probably the first honest moment we'd had in months. Here's what I've realized about this whole situation. Serafina genuinely believed she could have it both ways. Public independence for her brand, private dependence for her lifestyle. She wanted to sell herself as a self-made, single lifestyle influencer while someone else quietly funded that lifestyle behind the scenes. When I pointed out this contradiction, she didn't see it as a contradiction. She saw it as me failing to understand that her career required certain optics, and my role was to support those optics financially without expecting recognition. This isn't about Instagram, she kept saying. This is about you punishing me for making business decisions. You're right, I told her. I am punishing you for making business decisions. The business decision to erase me from your public life while keeping me in your financial life. I'm just helping you commit to your brand fully. That's when the real breakdown started. Not the tears and emotions breakdown, but the practical consequences breakdown. Without access to my accounts, she couldn't afford the apartment, couldn't make her car payment, couldn't maintain the shopping habits that fueled her content, couldn't afford the salon visits and dining experiences that made up her lifestyle brand. Her entire independent woman aesthetic was completely dependent on financial support she'd decided was embarrassing to acknowledge. The friend group response has been telling. About half of them support her position that couples should keep their finances separate from their social media choices. The other half are asking pointed questions about why she needed to erase me completely instead of just posting less couple content. Her photographer friend Bram accidentally let slip that she'd been planning a rebrand as a newly single lifestyle influencer, which explains the systematic photo deletion and the casual dismissal of my concerns. When I asked her about that, she said, "It's not like I was actually going to break up with you. I just wanted the content flexibility." Content flexibility. That's what she called planning to publicly pretend she was single while privately remaining financially supported. I've been doing digital marketing for 8 years. I understand the tension between authentic life and brand management. But what Serafina was doing wasn't brand management. It was identity fraud. She was selling a lifestyle story that was fundamentally false, and she expected me to subsidize that false narrative while accepting complete erasure from it. Edit. For people saying I should have tried couples counseling first, you can't counsel someone out of viewing their relationship as a business expense they don't want to acknowledge publicly. Edit 2. Several people asked about her financial abuse claim. Removing someone from accounts they were added to as a courtesy isn't financial abuse. Financial abuse would be controlling money that belongs to them. All of this was my money that I was choosing to share. Edit 3. To those asking what I want out of this, I want her to understand that you can't simultaneously erase someone and depend on them. Pick one. Update 2. The internet has a weird way of figuring out authenticity, and Serafina's rebrand is not going well. It started when one of her followers noticed something interesting. Her content showed this amazing independent lifestyle: designer clothes, expensive restaurants, luxury apartment, new car. But her Venmo history, which she'd made public for transparency, showed almost no incoming payments except from me. Someone screenshot the disconnect and posted it with the question, how is she affording this lifestyle on her own if her payment history shows she's financially dependent on her boyfriend who she's erased from all her content? The post went viral in the Miami influencer community. Not huge viral, but enough that people started asking questions in her comments. Where does your income actually come from? Is this lifestyle authentic if someone else is paying for it? Why aren't you showing the person who makes this content possible? Serafina tried to control the narrative by posting a story about private relationships and public brands, but it just made people more curious. Comments started getting brutal. So you're selling independence while being completely financially dependent? This feels like false advertising. Your whole brand is based on a lie. Her engagement started dropping because people felt misled. They'd been following someone they thought was building something on her own, and finding out it was essentially funded content changed how they viewed her posts. The really damaging part came when local Miami influencers started talking about it. Apparently, Serafina had been judging other creators for not being authentic enough, while running what was essentially a funded lifestyle fiction account. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Someone who preached authenticity was living a completely inauthentic financial situation. 3 sponsor deals got dropped when brands realized the disconnect between her self-made messaging and her actual financial reality. Companies that partnered with her for independent woman campaigns didn't want to be associated with someone whose independence was entirely fabricated. Meanwhile, I've been watching this unfold while living in what can only be described as financial peace. Not having to cover her 3,200-month lifestyle has meant I can actually save money, invest properly, and think about my own financial goals instead of just enabling someone else's aesthetic choices. My work performance has improved dramatically because I'm not constantly stressed about money or checking my accounts to see what surprise expenses have appeared. My digital marketing clients have noticed the difference, and I got promoted to senior specialist last month with a nice salary bump. The crazy part is how different my life feels without the constant financial drain. I'd gotten so used to living paycheck to paycheck despite making decent money that I'd forgotten what financial stability actually felt like. Serafina, meanwhile, has had to move back in with her parents in Coral Gables because she couldn't afford the Miami apartment on her actual income. Her car got repossessed when the payments stopped coming from my account. Her whole lifestyle brand collapsed the moment the financial foundation was removed. She's tried to frame this as me being vindictive, but honestly, I just stopped funding a fictional narrative. If your entire brand depends on hiding who's actually paying for it, maybe the problem isn't with the person refusing to stay hidden. The most telling moment came when she asked me to just help her get back on her feet and promised she'd include me in her content going forward. I'll post couple content again, she said, like she was offering me a huge concession. We can build the brand together. But that's when I realized the fundamental problem. She still saw our relationship as content. She was willing to acknowledge my existence if it helped her rebuild her follower count, but that acknowledgement would still be strategic, not genuine. Eat it. People asking about whether I feel guilty. I feel guilty that I enabled someone to build a false brand for so long. I should have recognized the red flags when she started erasing me while keeping my financial support. Edit 2. To those saying this is petty, systematically erasing someone from your public life while depending on their private support isn't a relationship. It's a business arrangement. I just stopped being her silent investor. Edit 3. Someone asked if I miss her. I miss who I thought she was before I realized I was funding a performance instead of supporting a partner. Final update on the girlfriend erased me digitally while depending on me financially situation. Serafina moved back to her parents' house in Coral Gables about 6 weeks ago. Turns out when your entire lifestyle brand collapses, and your follower count drops by 30%, maintaining Miami rent becomes impossible on boutique retail wages. Her Instagram now has about 32K followers, still respectable, but not enough to sustain the lifestyle influencer income she'd been building toward. The rebrand to authentic, independent woman didn't survive the reality check of actual independence. As for me, these past 3 months have been a masterclass in what happens when you stop subsidizing someone else's fictional life and start investing in your own actual one. The financial change alone has been staggering. Not spending $3,200 a month on someone else's aesthetic choices means I've been able to put $9,600 into investments over the past 3 months. I've built an emergency fund for the first time in my adult life. I've been able to think about long-term financial goals instead of just wondering whether my account will survive the next Instagram-inspired shopping trip. But the emotional shift has been even bigger. I didn't realize how much mental energy I'd been spending on managing someone else's financial relationship with reality, always calculating whether we could afford her next content idea, always wondering if questioning a purchase would trigger a conversation about how I was stifling her creativity, always feeling guilty for having thoughts about money when she was building something important. Living without that constant background stress has been like breathing clearly for the first time in over a year. My work life has improved dramatically. When you're not constantly checking your bank account to see what unexpected charges appeared, when you're not fielding texts about declined cards during client meetings, you can actually focus on your career. I got promoted to Senior Digital Marketing Specialist, which came with a 20% raise and significantly better project assignments. The irony isn't lost on me that my career took off the moment I stopped funding someone else's career dreams. I've also learned something important about social media and relationships. When someone systematically erases you from their public life while keeping you in their private financial life, they're telling you exactly how they value you. You're useful, not important. You're support, not a partner. The hardest part of this whole experience wasn't the breakup itself. It was realizing how long I'd been accepting a relationship where my primary value was economic, while my personal value was embarrassing enough to hide. I keep thinking about this conversation we had about 2 months into dating, where Serafina told me she wanted to build something real with someone who understood her ambitions. I thought that meant someone who would support her dreams. What it actually meant was someone who would fund her dreams while staying invisible. I've started dating someone new, Maria, who works in software development and has her own very healthy relationship with both money and social media. When I told her about the whole situation, her response was perfect. Wait, she erased you from her posts while you were paying her rent? That's not a relationship. That's employment. That's exactly what it was. I'd been employed as Serafina's lifestyle subsidy while she branded herself as independent. When I quit that job, her whole business model collapsed. The weirdest part is that I'm not even angry about it anymore. I'm grateful. Grateful that she showed me exactly who she was before I wasted more time and money on someone who saw me as a resource rather than a person. Grateful that her digital erasure taught me the importance of reciprocal respect in relationships. Grateful that her financial dependence while preaching independence showed me how important authenticity actually is. Most importantly, grateful that I learned to match someone's energy instead of always trying to be more generous than they are respectful. Serafina wanted to be digitally single while remaining financially partnered. She wanted the aesthetic of independence while maintaining the reality of dependence. When those two things proved incompatible, she had to choose. She chose the aesthetic and lost the financial support. I chose my financial boundaries and gained actual peace. These days, I spend my money on my own goals. My social media shows my actual life, and my relationships are based on mutual respect rather than strategic convenience. My financial aesthetic is finally aligned with my personal values. Turns out the most beautiful filter is authenticity, and authenticity doesn't require monthly payments to maintain. Edit. For people asking about Maria, we're taking it slow, but she's amazing. She actually posted a photo of us together after our 3rd date without asking me to Venmo her dinner money first. It's refreshing. Edit 2. To those saying I should have been more understanding of influencer business needs, supporting someone's career goals and funding their fictional independence while accepting complete erasure are 2 different things. Edit 3. Serafina's latest posts are about learning to be truly independent and building authentic success. The lack of self-awareness is impressive, but at least she's finally practicing what she preaches. Final edit. Sometimes the best thing someone can do for you is show you exactly how little you mean to them while expecting you to pretend that's okay. Serafina did that perfectly, and I'm grateful she did it before I wasted more time trying to be enough for someone who wanted me invisible.